We've made about 50 YouTube videos so far this year. And as of today, the team has cost us around $210,000 in a combination of travel, salaries, benefits, equipment, and overhead. And YouTube itself, YouTube ads, have made us about $20,000. Sponsors on YouTube are sadly a necessary evil. I don't expect anybody wants a break in the story to talk about a sponsor. Jake Tran's community turned against him for sponsoring scammy products he trashed in other videos. Johnny Harris has had dozens of videos questioning his journalism because of the sponsors that he takes. Ideally, on a news outlet, the journalism and the business side of things are completely independent, but that's not always true in businesses.
Why shouldn't we do all the news?
Because that's not how things work in this country.
And make that worse when the creator is in charge of everything. Even for YouTubers with communities in the millions, YouTube ads aren't enough to keep with the high standard of quality or frequency that YouTube itself demands. And someone has to pay the bills. So in this video, I want to break down the economics of running a YouTube channel like ours from both perspectives, from the perspective of a company and the perspective of a creator. How views translate into revenue, and for a company like ours, which sometimes sponsors videos on other channels, what KPIs you should be looking for when finding creators to sponsor. Now, YouTube's most obvious source of revenue is advertising. They introduced merch a few years back, and so far we've sold about one t-shirt, and memberships, which we recently started exploring. There's also YouTube Premium, that's a whole other thing. With memberships, they're looking to circumvent Patreon, which many creators have been leveraging to get the strongest of fans to support their channel with some cash. But the bulk of YouTube revenue is, of course, the ads. They made $7.4 billion in ads last quarter, a 5% growth from last year's Q2. For most creators, they pay out 55% of the revenue generated from their videos back to the creator. Now, these ads operate via an auction. From Google Ads, brands can pick audience, geographic region, or even specific YouTube channels and serve ads to the people watching those channels. An advertiser usually bids between 1 and 3 cents of a dollar to serve one ad to a viewer. For unskippable ads, they pay for every ad view, and for longer ads, they pay only if you watch for 30 seconds or more. This gives us a $10 to $30 CPM. That means cost per million impressions. Overall, this makes for quite a cost-effective campaign if you're a brand, because you only pay for a viewer that cares enough about your ad not to skip it. The rest of the audience gets exposed to your ad mostly for free. In our case, we also leverage retargeting. Sorry about that. If you watch one of our videos, there's a chance that you'll see a pre-roll ad before another video in a different channel. That's us trying to move you down the funnel. That means that even if you're watching someone else's video, since you're in this specific target audience, YouTube might serve you that ad as long as we are outbidding every other advertiser trying to target you. This bidding system happens in microseconds and happens every single time you load a YouTube video. This makes up for a pretty varied mix of results as to what a channel makes. Google averages this in a metric called RPM, which is revenue per mil. That's what they report to us creators. A channel from India, for example, might make under $1 per mil because the ads that get shown to their audience are for the Indian market and all the bids are lower. We are an overall business channel and most of our viewers are in the US. That ends up giving us about $4 in RPM, but that might end up being a double-digit number for very targeted channels such as investing. Again, that average comes from a mix of all of these variables. You can notice drastic changes on this depending on the topic. For example, our Starter Planet video on India has an RPM of $1.05. It needed 500,000 views to generate $500. This is likely due to the audience being overwhelmingly from India. Our forensics episode on recessions has an RPM of over $5.5, which translated at almost $3,000 for that same number of views. That's connected to a US audience, plus the focus on investing topics, which always pay rather well. As a company policy, we don't really do mid-roll ads from YouTube because we want to focus on the story. I did enable them for this video about 4 weeks ago, and we honestly didn't notice a significant change in revenue generated. Now, do these work? Well, they obviously do, especially if YouTube is generating so much revenue from them. The advantage of this is that you can directly control how much you spend and therefore how many people see your ad. Programmatic ads like this can be tracked somewhat efficiently with link references, and again, you can quickly iterate and experiment with audiences just by changing your focus. In my experience though, the catch with these YouTube ads is attribution. People might remember a brand or might visit their website or consider them for a purchase later, but not all conversions happen because people click on the call to action on the ad. Remember, people are about to watch a video. If you're essentially asking them to stop that action and to visit your website instead, you're not going to get great results. Those ads are also perceived as an interruption, a nuisance that you have to get through to finally watch the video that you want to watch. Another challenge for the brand is producing the ad. Production is expensive. A single video can easily cost thousands of dollars, and you need one to make this test and advertise. And that's where where the sponsor for today's video comes in, which is a bit of an inception today, considering that this is a video about sponsorships. But anyway, Movio uses AI to let you make professional videos without expensive production costs. This is called a text-to-AI spokesperson tool, and it's pretty fascinating. You just type in your text, pick an accent and avatar, and you're done. The avatar will narrate the text for you with realistic expressions, and it's really useful for training courses, onboarding, explainers, and lately for YouTube ads as well. And you don't have to worry about variety. Movio has more than 80 real human avatars and more than 20 computer-generated avatars, more than 200 video templates and cases, all of which are constantly growing. And if you want that extra touch, you can even use the talking photo feature. Just upload your own picture, and in no time, you'll have your own avatar to set you apart from the rest. Plus, with your premium account, you can create custom avatars as well. And here's what Movio can do for your brand.
The first 100 people that sign up with the link in the description will have access to unlimited exports on the videos they create,
with a small watermark. And if you want to remove the watermark, pricing starts at just $30 per month, which makes for an incredibly cheap experiment to produce and experiment with your first few ads on YouTube. Now, the reason why there's an in-video ad in this video is because the programmatic ads on YouTube aren't really ideal for the creator or for the brand. Creators can't really make a living from YouTube ads alone, and brands want an endorsement and additional value that only the voice of the creator can bring. Our first ever sponsorship came from Skillshare. We knew the platform, we had seen their callouts by other creators, and it almost felt a little bit prestigious to have a relationship with Skillshare on YouTube. They sponsor a lot of channels that we love. Now, the big difference here is that a callout by the creator, a mention by the creator that people came here to watch is very different from a third-party ad, and brands are willing to pay some extra cash for that. Even if it's not a pure endorsement, that brand presence on the video called out by the narrator is worth more. How much more? Well, the price of these sponsorships varies even more because it's a question of the bargaining capacity of the company and the creator. For example, our first ever Skillshare sponsored video was only about $1,000 in a flat fee, plus a variable royalty for every sign-up that we drove to them. And that's a great deal for the brand, but a bad deal for the creator because the base sponsorship is really cheap. They get a great cost per impression regardless of how many views the video gets, and they only pay out if their core KPI is met. Remember, these videos and sponsorships live out forever. They may get hundreds of thousands of views over the coming months. So for that, a Skillshare deal, for example, they paid us $10 for each sign-up that we drove, up to a maximum of $2,000, which we actually capped. At this point, a company like Skillshare understands that $10 is the correct price to pay for a sign-up after accounting for their conversion rate, their churn, and their other unit economics. I'm actually going to get more into those numbers in a sec, but let me just wrap this up. At that point, we were the creator. We had very little leverage to negotiate. It was our first big-ish sponsor, and there wasn't much pushback that we could do. Fast forward a few years, and we currently charge between $5,000 and $10,000 for a mid-roll call-out in one of our videos. We actually stopped doing pre-roll ads because they affect video retention. People skip through them, which is a key metric for YouTube, that retention in the first few seconds. So that limits exposure for the video overall. The 5K pricing is, like everything, a question of supply and demand. In our case, our channel's audience is quite unique. It's entrepreneurs, it's founders, and few other channels can target such a high percentage of users in that same group. That means that some brands that target founders or startup employees are willing to pay a premium price for that extra exposure on our channel. Even in these cases, the CPM is a reference that can't be ignored. As part of the negotiation process, brands will usually look at the last few videos on the channel to find out how many views they're getting on average. That number is used to estimate the expected CPM of a new video. In our case, those CPMs end up being between $30 and $100, which is definitely higher than a normal YouTube ad. But again, that's the difference. That's the value of this targeted audience, of the narrator, of not having to produce the video from scratch. We have even rejected sponsors that simply do not align with our values. Now, before I wrap up, I want to spend some time talking about those ROIs, more from the company side, because brands do YouTube ads for two main reasons. One is branding and conversions, which is what I like to call direct response marketing. Direct response ads are those that very directly drive revenue for the company. The marketing team has a budget for advertising that they carefully measure against conversions to ensure that the company is actually making money from what they paid out. On the other side, brand awareness ads are more abstract. You can measure views, you can measure brand exposure, likes or comments, but not necessarily revenue. And that does not make brand awareness irrelevant, though. For example, it's impossible for Red Bull to measure the sales they make for spending millions of dollars on this man parachuting from space, or from having not one, but two Formula One teams, or for this insane video I saw the other day. It's just brand. It's epic and it keeps them on top of your mind. It works, it's just really hard to measure how much. Some brands, especially CPGs, mostly rely on brand awareness for sales, but digital products such as SaaS or e-commerce or apps can definitely track the revenue more carefully because it's digital. In our case, Slidebean company, through our entire history, we've usually spent around 80% of our marketing budget on direct response campaigns and about 20% on brand awareness. And I think this is a good balance. As our YouTube channel grew, we started to understand the value of that brand awareness and diverting more budget to that brand awareness. And I mentioned that we have spent $210,000 on our production team this year. This is all YouTube content. YouTube ad revenue plus the various sponsorships that we've run have generated about $165,000 for the channel, which actually leaves us at about $46,000 negative. But our YouTube channel is not a business in itself. It's just the brand awareness branch of Slidebean. By contrast, we've spent around $270,000 on pure growth, on direct response. That's our marketing, our SEO team, as well as our paid advertising costs. With $270,000 going to direct response and $46,000 going to cover the portion of the media team that's not covered by ad revenue, we are effectively spending about 15% of our total growth budget on brand awareness. But I wanted to give you an example from someone else, not from our own case, because I know we're like in a weird business situation with this channel. I mentioned the Skillshare deal, and I think it's a good example to use. Any subscription service should operate under this rule. Cost of acquisition under 3x LTV. The cost of acquisition must surely be smaller than the revenue you generate from that customer. But for the business to be profitable and exciting and growing, that revenue per customer should be at least 3 times what you paid to bring that customer in. Now, using Skillshare's example, let's say that they ended up paying about $12 per signup, including the $10 royalty and a fraction of the video sponsorship. That is a signup though, not a paid user. So let's assume, for example, that 10% of their signups actually become active Skillshare subscribers. That means that the cost of a paid user, cost of acquisition for this formula, was $120. Skillshare is $32 per month or $168 per year. That means the average user on Skillshare should be staying for 12 months on a monthly membership or for 2 years on an annual membership, so that Skillshare makes that 3x LTV rule back. It's quite likely that they do though. They've been doing this for years and they know their math. And that's YouTube sponsorships from both sides. Thanks a lot to the guys from Movio for making today's video possible, helping cover our costs. And for you guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button and we'll see you next week.